You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks and Zach Bechtold. We hope you enjoy this week's show, and you can find out more about us by going online at BeardedTheologians.com, where you can pick up a few t-shirts, listen to a few old episodes, and find ways that you can connect with us. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold. And today we have a very special guest to the podcast. We have the Reverend Nathan Webb, or Nerd Pastor Nate, if you will, on the show with us today to talk about his book and some of the cool things that he's doing. Nathan, thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? You know, who you are, where you're from, what you do?
Sure. So I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church on the East Coast here in the Western North Carolina Conference. I have been a church planter for ever since graduating from seminary. So I graduated seminary and pitched a church plant idea that I had for nerds, geeks, and gamers because I saw that we had this kind of missing gap. I am all of those things. I am a nerd, a geek, and a gamer. And all of my friends were nerds, geeks, and gamers, but then my church life felt like a totally separate identity. And so I went to the conference and I said, look, something needs to be done here. Maybe we can create something that serves as a bridge. And the pitch that I had was to go to Comic-Cons across the country and meet people and love on them and hopefully welcome them into church communities. But that was 2020. And so Comic-Cons all pressed pause. And we had to press pause and say, well, if we can't go to Comic-Cons, what can we do? And the answer was streaming online. And so we started streaming on Twitch, playing video games, talking about anime and all sorts of nerdy things. And that eventually led to forming a church on Discord, which is kind of like a fancy Facebook group. And we hang out in Discord and we get to know one another through the things that we do there. We haven't really streamed much on Twitch in a while now. We're more on YouTube ever since we found some success there with our nerdy sermons that seem to click with people in like a video essay format. But long story short, planting a church for the past 6 years, totally online, a digital-first congregation called Checkpoint Church, focused on reaching nerds, geeks, and gamers.
I love that. I also love that you have what is that an exploded Game Boy Advanced behind you on the wall?
It is indeed.
Awesome.
I have one of that and one for the Classic and one for the Switch. So I have I'm
nice.
a Nintendo fanboy through and through. I grew up very much on the Nintendo side of things. Didn't get my first Xbox until college. So I love all things video game, but definitely have a particular persuasion I lean towards.
Absolutely. I also love when people have, if you're not watching this, people who have backgrounds as robust as mine. Get a lot of wall things, right? That's fun.
That is true. Anybody with ADHD or ADD is going to really enjoy watching this one because there's so much to look at in the background.
Yes. Yeah. So it really doesn't matter what we say. You're gonna be able to pay attention to a lot of things. It's great.
Right.
Well, Nathan, you have a new book out. I want to talk about all of those things in church planning also, but we want to give you an opportunity to talk about your new book, God and the Machine, Navigating Faith in the Age of AI. Such a poignant topic, not only for the church, but for the world around us, right? Like AI is here. So tell us a little bit about your book.
So my goal with the book and what I went into it with was, serving a digital first church. So like serving a place where everybody is online. And typically they're going to be people who are maybe more like neurodiverse. Maybe they are people who are online for a specific reason and because of the way that it appeals to their sensibilities. Often that group of people have a real crisis happening with AI. There's a lot happening that is very negative in the AI world with kind of the abuse and some of the systems being like against the environment or just against creativity or et cetera, et cetera. And so that was like my pastoral world was everybody that I was serving as a pastor was terrified of AI, positively terrified. And then I would log on to, my church planning groups and they were like, man, have you heard about this new AI? Like, I'm going to be using it and I can't wait to have it do everything for me all the time. And I'm making caricatures and I'm making action
Mhm.
figures and I'm doing all this cool stuff. And I'm constantly using this new, incredible technology. And I found myself like caught in the middle of these two realities of the people that I'm called to serve are terrified.
Mhm.
The people who are teaching me how to hopefully do my job better are over enthused. What am I supposed to do in the midst of all of this? How am I supposed to approach this thing? And so I thought that maybe I wouldn't be the only one experiencing that kind of conundrum of this sort of ethical quandary of like, should I use AI? Should I not? How do I set those boundaries? And so my goal with this book was to try and approach sort of a human forward thinking towards our use of AI.
Mhm.
How can we actually approach this topic in a way that is all at once like ethical and thoroughly theological, like trying to approach it with a Christian lens, a pastoral lens, or just a church
Mhm.
member lens, even, but then also not throw the baby out with the bathwater, like not be totally afraid of it and to say that it's this big boogeyman.
Mhm.
Name its problems, no doubt about that, but neither fall into either camp of like the over enthusiastic tech user or the totally fearful, um, fearful person of AI. So that was my goal, was to enter into that conversation with that lens in particular.
I love that. I mean, that's definitely I've seen that conversation ramp up more and more on the either or, right? Especially with the
Mm.
caricatures that you mentioned. Like
Yeah.
I tossed one out there, and I had two or three people that were like, "You used this much water to make that picture,"
Mm.
and then a handful of people that were like, "That looks like you," and it nailed it, right? Like this is fun. Uh, and Matt and I had the conversation quite a bit about AI as a conversation partner in sermon building and planning, and
Hmm.
as well as like larger documents and things that we have to work on, and just kind of how can we use AI in a way that's, like you said, productive for us, but also in a responsible way that doesn't feed the fear and the abuse of it. And so
Right.
I think you're right. It's here. How do we as people in the church embrace it but not overuse it, or just be scared of it, right?
Mm.
Like it was live streaming during the pandemic. Oh, if we do this, nobody will ever come back to church.
Right.
Uh, and yet we have found ways to connect people that we weren't connecting to
Hmm.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a big conversation there. I don't really have a question, more of just a
No, yeah,
affirmation of thanks for the
it's a
work.
great point. Technology is really what I write at the center at. And like, so whether it's digital church or the approaches that we might have to like live streaming or, with this book with AI, that's always kind of top of mind for me is I consider myself to be a digital native, like somebody that truly thrives online. Like I thrive in digital spaces. It's where I am the most familiar and comfortable and able to do my work, but also just be a human being, a member of society. And so my heart is for people that are in that same place as I am. And that was one of the big tasks with the church, especially in that COVID era, was like, how do I explain that we're not like replacing the church? We're not trying to do like something entirely new, but rather we're trying to do an old thing in a new way. We're trying to reach people. We're trying to build community online. We're not trying to replace anything, but rather we're stepping into a place where now we have the capacity to reach new people. And
Mhm.
I think that's very much the same vein that I approach AI with, is like approaching it with the digital native and the person that is most affected as possible.
Mhm.
Well, and I think one of the things I wrestle with a lot is like the environmental impact of AI. And it's just like, Zach said that when he shared the character of him, like people were pointing out how many, the environmental impact on that. And I was watching an interesting conversation play out on Facebook the other day about, well, if we're talking about the environmental impact of this, why are we not talking about the environmental impact of just the internet? And then like
Mm.
it broke down to other things as well. talking about how that causes harm and stress on our systems or impact on our environment. Um, as you utilize it, and how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah. For me, it comes down to approaching the conversation with ethics at the like heart of the thing. And so one of the chapters of the book I titled just like the ethics engine, because I want us to approach the conversation with, at the very least, like, let's not even let the car start moving until we've talked about it. Let's not even start pushing things forward until we've at least like considered and discerned what might be the right way forward. And so for me, as I've like done my ethical work, I've determined that a boundary that I'm willing to set is I really don't use image generation or video generation. So I'll do a lot of chatbot based conversations. I try not to waste them. I try not to just say thank you or whatever. I try to still at least like let them be meaningful interactions with a chatbot or with ChatGPT or whatever. But a thing that I told myself was like, if it's something that either doesn't have real purpose for me, or if it's something that I know is going to cause direct harm, so like approaching it with a Wesleyan lens of like, do good, do no harm. If it's something that I know is going to cause direct harm to the people that I pastor, I'm just not going to do it. And so a lot of the folks that are in my space would be directly harmed by me sharing an image that was generated by AI. They would know like, hey, that was a job that I could have had, or that was something that my friend who works in the industry could have had. And so they're going to have some kind of natural reaction to that. I try to be really careful to not set that boundary that I've set for myself on others, because I don't want to like guilt or shame people. I don't think that's going to be an appropriate way to navigate this, but instead by trying to give like a proactive, but you can at least be asking ethical questions of this. Like there was this phenomenon of AI Jesus that happened a couple years ago that I wrote about for the United Methodist Church, and like I think that that's a boundary that is a little bit easier to set. Probably don't use the AI Jesus chatbot. That feels pretty easy to say like, yeah, that should make us uncomfortable. If it doesn't make us uncomfortable, then maybe we've got bigger questions to ask. But that was something for me that was like a helpful grounding point of, I think everybody would be at least a little uncomfortable with the whole concept of a AI Jesus Twitch chat that is answering people's questions. Like, I don't know if we want the representative of our entire faith to be a Twitch streamer.
Right. I feel that way. I hear folks using it as a therapist conversational
Mhm.
partner, right? And have that same kind of conviction of that's not where I want my therapy coming from.
Yeah.
Can it be helpful? Maybe, but not long term, right? Like,
Mm.
and in the same way of AI Jesus, that's only going to get you so far. Like,
Right.
where's the real work that we're putting in here? Yeah, and as I sit in places and hear that within earshot of like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I think that's
Mm.
a great measure of where's the discomfort? Where do we draw that ethical line of like, how do we do better?
Yeah. I don't think this made the cut in the book itself, but I even mentioned, no, I think I do. Um, that we have this same practice in the other things that we do. Like I have boundaries that I won't cross in print media as well. Like
Mhm.
I am uncomfortable with the chick track. Like that is something that would be like a red line for me. I'm not going to make some kind of like Hell and Damnation
Mhm.
comic book that I put on the back of a toilet seat to guilt somebody into a quick confession of faith. That's something that for me is going to be a red line worth drawing. But again, it comes down to like, this is not new necessarily in AI tech. It's just in all technology that we ask ourselves the question of what should and what shouldn't we be willing to do and to use technology for the purposes of.
Mhm. One of the conversations I would have with folks, especially during COVID, when we had to push technology, had to push gathering together online, and the fear that nobody would return to the building once we could. And talking about technology in the church was like hymnals, right? Like
Mm,
the adding hymnals to our churches was a huge deal.
mm,
Um, And same kind of nobody will ever pick these up. They can't read, or when we went from hymnals to screens up on the wall, nobody will ever sing again. No, I think they will.
Right.
How do we embrace this well? And as you've seen that kind of in your work, leaning into the digital church and digital community, how have you seen people's faiths? How have you seen people embrace their faith, but also see it grow in a way that maybe we haven't pre-COVID or pre-introducing this generation of technology?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that just have never felt welcome into the church,
Mhm.
like maybe haven't ever felt engaged in the church. One of my favorite things to do is I like, and not every pastor, that's not fair, but a lot of pastors have taken on like the summer movie series, well, where they'll do a sermon series and they'll base it on like the latest movies that are coming out. And I think they're scratching at something that is very much part of my experience, which is that stories are just really good, and stories help ground us. And like this is a part of like Jesus's parables, right? Like stories have an impact on us. And so I think there are a lot of people that hear really impactful stories in comic books and in video games and in movies and in anime that are excited to hear that perspective offered by a pastor and in a church space. And so as much as like the digital church has been a conduit because of the fact that it's digital, it's also just been, this is where the nerds are, and they're finally being seen and known for the things that they love and that excite them. And so there's a lot of just like once the shock and awe of like, what do you mean a pastor's on YouTube? Or what do you mean a pastor's streaming on Twitch or playing video games or talking about that? Once that kind of awe wears off, then it's just like, oh, these are things that I love to talk about that now I'm able to talk about within my faith and within my experiences that I have as a human being. And so that's been a huge boon in our favor, is like regardless of when and how people participate, they're just participating because this is the first time somebody's met them where they are, met them in the place where they're coming from. So that's one example. Another huge moment for me in planting a digital church was whenever we started. So our Discord, I mentioned, is like a Facebook group, but it has some different components and things that you can do to it. And one of them is kind of like the old school website prayer wall, where you might update the prayer wall and with whatever prayer request you got that Sunday, and then people can pull up the web page and they can see the names on the prayer wall. That's a pretty common practice. But on Discord, it's asynchronous posting, so people can just post a prayer request if they might have one. They got something on their heart, they can weigh in, put it on the prayer request channel, and then somebody will get to it. And for a while there, whenever we were first starting that, it was me. Like I would respond to the prayer requests, I would do the prayer hand emoji or whatever would be necessary in that moment. I would check in with them after the fact just to see how things were going. But then there was this really interesting moment that happened. Where we have people from across the world. And so I'd be asleep and somebody would post a prayer request, and someone else in our Discord server would get to that person before I would. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting experience that I've not had in my other years of ministry. Like typically it's always the pastor receiving the prayer request, facilitating that kind of conversation. But here, like I wasn't the first one to get the prayer request. I wasn't the first one to respond to that person. Instead, the community of people like attended to their own needs of the other person. They were able to be in kind of a spiritual presence of prayer with the other people in the server, even whenever I was literally sleeping away from the space. So that was a really interesting moment for me. And I think that gets back to something that I like to point out of it being like almost an opportunity for like a neo-monastic experience, because people are typically on their phones all the time, or they're on their computer all the time. And so why not give them a better place to be than the Instagram feed or doom scrolling on TikTok? Like it would be better if we could get people into if they're going to be monastically on their phone, if they're going to be dwelling on their phone 24/7, then at least let's be amongst other people that are loving and doing good.
Matt, you look like you had a question.
No, I don't know. It's like I agree. Like I agree. Like yeah, like
Yeah.
um, as you go about what you do, what has been probably one of the bigger challenges that you've had to face being in a digital space like that?
Yeah. I think there is the like ever present challenge of competition, like the internet just being a thing that is constantly vying for attention, the attention economy of all of these other people. So I always like to like describe who we're in competition with as being like the biggest entities on planet Earth. Like our competition is not First Church down the road. Our competition is the entirety of Facebook. Our competition is the entirety of TikTok. Like that's who we're trying to compete with. We're trying to make sure that whenever you open your phone in the morning, that you click on our Discord server first before you open up your Instagram feed or your email. And like that is really steep competition. That's really hard to compete against those entities that are like filled with rooms of people who are paid explicitly to figure out how to maximize your attention, how to draw you away from the other things going on so that you can just be zoned in on what they want to sell you. And so that's a real thing for us is the challenge is on one hand, we want to be in competition with those things. On the other hand, within our kind of model of doing no harm, we don't want to just become a replacement for those doom scrolls, as in you continue to be addicted to technology. You continue to be like viable, marketable audience. And so we want to be in competition with those things while also living within this paradox of not wanting to stoop to their levels either. Which is a real challenge to try to figure out how to do this work responsibly. And to essentially be like working yourself out of a job. Like I want people to find community in our space, but I also want them to feel a sense of freedom from the kind of addictiveness of technology. And more often than not, what we've discovered in the midst of that challenge is that a lot of our people really do find they no longer want to have an Instagram account. They no longer want to have a TikTok account. And so they'll delete those things. And they might not be as online as often as they were, but they do come to us. They're still like, yeah, I still want to nerd out with the people that I want to nerd out with. I still want to play games with the people that I want to play games with. But now I'm just not on the places that are also filled with ads and microtransactions and all that kind of stuff. So it's working out. And I think, the Spirit is moving in the thing and still allowing it to become something real and trying to lean into that and have a lot of trust in the midst of that. But that is definitely the biggest struggle, is making sure that we don't like become the beast that we're trying to fight against.
Yeah. And I think what I hear you saying, maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong. And I think anybody that's in this space as just a human, regardless of pastor or church or any community that we're a part of, is just that we're fighting against becoming content and becoming community. And I find myself in the same way. If I could get off Facebook and Instagram and not have to have it as part of my job, I think I would be happy to. But because I could curate the communities that I'd lean into the communities a little bit more that I want to be a part of rather than the content piece of it. And I fight that battle like once a month anymore. If I'll see something on Facebook as I'm doom scrolling, I'm like, no, I'm done. And then I'm like, no, I need to be here because it's not so much about the content, it's about the people that are here that I'm connected with on purpose, rather than this broader thing that was 20 years ago when I hopped on it. And so I don't know. I find that really interesting in especially as I look through the chapters in your book here, thinking about the church in the age of machines and human forward thinking. Those ideas definitely flow through everything that you've said of how do we, as a church, how do we just as humans find these connectors, find our communities, and be able to shut the content out a little bit or weed through it in a healthier way that brings us together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Two of the big 10-cent words that I'm sort of playing with throughout the book is this tension between like transhumanism, which has to do with like how we allow ourselves to be augmented by technology. Now, typically that goes to like the extremes of literally like Android level augmentation and sci-fi and stuff like that. But even just the way that we use tech for productivity, I would consider like a tension there. And then the other side of that coin being like anthropomorphism. And so you got into that a little bit with the conversation of like therapy.
Mhm.
And I think that that is the biggest warning that I'm trying to put up throughout the book is like this technology is not going to be like some big AGI moment of like we've created, HAL. We've not created the Terminator. We're not doing this kind of work because we're not creating real intelligence.
Mhm.
We're not creating something that can bear the imago Dei, like trying to put a theological frame on it. But that we are really, really tempted to do that. We're
Yeah.
really, really tempted to ascribe it this like anthropomorphic, humanized nature. But ultimately, we really have to keep grounding ourselves in a reminder that this is a tool. This is a part of augmenting humanity through technology, which I define in the book as like applied knowledge. Technology is the application of what we know. And so that is what I keep trying to come back to throughout the book. As we're thinking through this lens of ethics, as we're thinking through this lens of humanity, reminding ourselves that technology is not humanity, and that technology can serve as an augmentation of us in an important way. Those are the dances that I find myself doing a lot, but that
Mhm.
was very intentional. Of like that's also in the case of the digital church. That's also in the case of the church that I serve is like a reminder that whenever we're on Discord, we are not becoming like disconnected, disembodied people. No, I'm still using this thing. I am augmented by this technology. But also, Facebook is not my friend. We shouldn't
Right.
anthropomorphize these feeds either. And so it all comes back to these like two kind of concepts that I think I tried to work through in a hopefully helpful way.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I often find myself being really nice to Alexa, and ChatGPT, and the ethics behind I don't have to tell it thanks because we're wasting energy. But also in the back of my mind, if this comes alive, I need it to know I'm a friend.
Right.
But I think you're exactly right. That's not. Truly, I'm with you. I like to believe we live in a world that's not what we're trying to do. In remembering that, I think is helpful.
Mhm.
Because then like you said, in your Discord channels, you're not disconnecting from that. You're coming together in just a different way, but are still seen, still heard. There's still empathy and compassion, like talking about your prayer walls and things like that. How often do we just not do that in the church when we're together?
Mhm.
And yet a tool like Discord allows us to do that in a way that's meaningful and hopeful, that maybe we miss in the in-person human experience, for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, I mean, I like the tension in between the two. I mean, Matt and I have never lived in the same place, and this friendship, this podcast, our relationship all together was built in a digital space, and continues to be maintained that way, through this and our cell phones and our Xboxes, and it's always been really important for us to make those connections of, yeah, we really can do this. We really can build meaningful relationships. Um, it doesn't have to be the fear-based or that'll never work. Like,
Right.
and I appreciate the work you're doing through that. I just have
So
comments today for you, Nathan. I don't have questions.
That's all good.
no. Um, so where's a good place to pick up the book?
The book is available through Cokesbury and through Amazon. So those are going to be the two best places to find that. And the cool thing about it is that it's it kind of in line with their usual productions on Cokesbury, where it also has a leader's guide. And so it's designed with being like a 6 session Bible study, to the point that each chapter does include like biblical references, not only because I'm a pastor, not only because I'm trying to write this from a Christian perspective, but also like so this can serve as a Bible study, as a kind of way for us to explore, hey, what does the Bible have to offer about technology? Because sometimes I think we can feel very separate between those two worlds, but they're more alike than you would probably realize, and they have more overlap than most people normally think. So offering that within like 6 sessions, each one having a little video starter that you could watch with your group and handle some questions and study guide questions together. Or if you just like to do those things by yourselves, that also has the
Nice.
purpose of that kind of thing. But Yeah, it is available and ready to be used.
Love that. Uh, working through the book, Nathan, did when you finished it, or as you've come away from finishing it, has there been anything? Have you had any grand revelations? Did you have any like, oh, this is the thing moment, kind of working through this topic, but through just kind of your real life experience being in this world?
Yeah, it's ironic. I feel like if you'd asked this question 2 weeks ago, so I don't
Mhm.
want to date this podcast too
Sure.
much, but there has been a like recent rise of the caricature trend that we talked about, and like before that, I might have said something different, but now it kind of feels like, oh, did we make any progress at all? Which is trying to be honest, but also grace filled in the midst of like it is a fun thing to hop on. It's fun to hop on trends, fun to do that kind of stuff, but for me, I tried to write the book with the intention of like, hey, AI moves really fast and it is
Mhm.
constantly changing and there's constantly a new thing and there's always something different. I just got a notification to try the latest GPT-5 Beyond Think or whatever. And I'm like, come on. Like it's always something new. It's always an update. And so I wanted to hopefully approach this not with a like dated kind of nature of this is only relevant here and now, and tomorrow it all becomes outdated because we've got this new groundbreaking revelation. And hopefully that comes through and is applicable by that model. I really think of offering up ethics at the heart of the thing. That was a grounding point, I think, as I was writing it, as I was like, oh, this feels like something I could actually apply. This feels like something that I can run with in my own ministry and in my own life of how I want to approach these concerns, how I want to approach these questions, and really just broader things. Um, and that is ultimately for me helpful. I think that for folks that want to apply it like a step further, I always like the Wesleyan quadrilateral, using that as like an ethics driver. So keeping that within our realm. If I wanted to like really Christianify the ethics engine, I would say just do that
Mhm.
with anything that we apply any questions to. But then it also just takes doing it, which sometimes that's easier said than done. Like sometimes it's easier to say like, yes, let's actually pause and think this through versus, well, it's just a fun thing. Um, let's play with the latest toy and see what we can vibe code and see what we can do next. Which again is like, I never want to yuck anybody's yum, and so
Right.
it's always the like interesting dance that you have to do in the midst of these. One of the grounding points that I try to offer is very much an echo from Kenny Jang, who's also very much an AI person, AI pastor who has, I think, a different view than I do, maybe a bit more pro AI. Again, I'm not anti AI, I'm just kind of on that line. Um, but he very much is in the corner of like, regardless of where you land on AI, your church needs to have an AI policy. And
Mhm.
so for me, that was something I really wanted to echo. That's very much in the zeitgeist of those that are writing on AI right now. Is like at a bare minimum, you just need to talk about it. You need to at least have a space where you're setting some boundaries, setting some ground rules, making your congregation aware of it, or just setting some kind of framework that you can work within. And I think that's equally true of people that are not in ministry, but that are just in their own personal life of ministry, like having a framework that you work within, having um, an understanding of where you're going to go and where you're absolutely not going to go. Like those are going to be really helpful things for any person to approach through this conversation.
Well, it's like just with any technology, whether it's, AI or social media or anything like that. Like, hey, here's how we're going to use it. Here's how we're going to utilize it, but here's how we're not going to use it. I think that
Mhm.
that's important, and really for any organization, but also oneself. We've kind of danced around the topic of what we would or wouldn't do with AI, and I think that that's something to be honest about and to have those conversations because it allows for it allows for good reflection, but it also allows us to like, is this really important for us to use? So again, I want to definitely honor your time and take give you the space. I did have one question. It actually is kind of around time. Like, how do you as a digital pastor manage those kind of boundaries? Because with online stuff, it's all the time. Like you just like the only way you get away from that is really like either disconnecting from the Wi-Fi and turning off your cell data thing. Like how do you incorporate those healthy boundaries into the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So it's helpful to know that every time you install an app, it asks if it can give you like notifications, and you can say no. You
Yes.
can say, no, I will not receive notifications from this app. And so that is a boundary that I've had to set over
Same.
years. For me personally, I have two little girls that I love with all of my heart, and I have my wife that is my high school sweetheart that I want to spend time with, and I am a PK. So I grew up in a family seeing how easy it is for a pastor to overcommit. And all of those things working in tandem have allowed me to say, like, no, I'm going to honor my time. I'm going to honor the clock out. And I'm going to do the best that I can to set those boundaries of when I will work and when I will not work. It does become muddy. I'm not gonna lie and say that it's easy every day or that it's always something that I'm able to completely honor. Like there are times where I'll log into Discord just for fun and get into a pastoral tailspin of having to help out with some crisis, but that's definitely a part of every pastoral ministry, online
Mhm.
or in person. But it does come down to like being aware of what technology does exist. Again, getting back to that like transhuman kind of how are we augmenting ourselves? We can also augment how we limit ourselves, ironically enough. We can augment how we set boundaries and how we um, I have a feature right now on my phone that turns into grayscale after 9 p.m. so that it doesn't hurt my eyes as bad. Like it's things like that, right? It's things that you don't think about or things that don't necessarily like readily come to mind. I've heard people talk about leaving the phone in the other room, that kind of stuff as being a piece of advice. Like there's all sorts of tips and tricks out there, but I think it comes down to at least being aware of what options there are, what options work for you. Um, and then I think being really available whenever I'm needed is super like so I have right now in front of me, I'm sitting at my work desk and I have four screens. And so I have one screen that always has Discord open because that's my
Mhm.
church building. That's the people that need me the most like readily. I'll check my email in the morning, check my email in the afternoon. I am on Discord the entire workday.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of the like office hours approach to look, if you need me, I'm very available. I'm not going to be available at 2 o'clock in the morning, but during my work hours, I will be the most like quick to respond person that you can possibly expect because I'm right here at it.
Mhm.
And so being willing to make myself very available when I'm needed, and then let that be kind of a like culture setter, I think, for the community. They know not to send a notification for something that's not super urgent because we've built that culture. And then
Mhm.
also just having really good volunteers, having people that are in your community and in your space, especially if you're online, who are you're like trusted voices who get your cell phone number or who get the ability to ping you directly so that they can say, hey, look, something urgent is happening and we need to get you off hours. Um, but again, that's nothing like new for pastors. Like we know, yeah, we
Yeah.
know the trustees chair has our phone number for whenever something's going really wrong. Like we have those kind of relationships built. We have the culture built. It just comes to building out the structures and the culture around us to respect our time and to respect whatever boundaries we need to set in our
Mhm.
ministry.
Yeah, I love that conversation because it's a both and both in person and online and how we're accessible as people,
Hmm.
regardless of pastors anymore. But yeah, and it takes a culture shift and it takes us as clergy people putting in healthy boundaries, which I've seen more of, and I'm sure you could probably speak to or witnessed a bunch being a PK. I didn't grow up in the church, so I came into it late and went, "Oh my God, what are we doing? It doesn't have to be this way. We
Hmm.
we can set boundaries, and there are times we have to answer the phone at whenever when we're at home, but also not everything's an emergency, and being
Right.
okay saying that and saying, I'll get that tomorrow. That's okay. And so I love that you named that, and I love that you named it for that digital space because often it seems that that space is void of time. That it's
Hmm.
just if I'm on, everybody else is on too, right? And so that's I worked with college students for a bunch of years, and they ran on that time and space of, hey, we're up at 2 in the morning. What are you doing? Well, I'm asleep. I've got kids. Oh, right. Yeah. And so yeah, it's naming those things and yeah, building that culture around I'll be there for you when I need to be there for you, but also you gotta hold that for me as well. Um, and I think it's hard no matter what world or what area we're in, but especially in that digital world. So good work on cultivating that. Um, because very clearly it's huge in your community, right? Like having those
Yeah.
people, one that you trust. Um, I don't think about that all the time. Like I have me,
Mhm.
and one other person that runs our social medias, and uh, having that in your space is got to be huge.
Yeah, it was something that was immediately present and immediately
Yeah.
needed,
Yep.
because we started streaming on Twitch day one, and Twitch streamers are wild. They would stream like 12 hours at a time, or they'd be like, "All right,
Wow.
I'm doing a 72-hour marathon tomorrow," and I'm like, "What do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
How?
doing that. I can't do that.
You
I'll
mean
stream a couple hours."
you mean you don't want to like preach to the whole Gospel of John and just like in one setting and just be like, all right, we're gonna go through the whole Gospel of John today, like
The most we ever did was an 8-hour long charity stream,
Wow.
and that was like, all right, that's enough. I'm ready to go home. I've done my job. I can't
Yeah.
imagine it. But there were very much people in those early days that were like, "So are you going to be streaming every day for 10 hours?" And I was like, I'm not. I'm not going to be that
Yeah.
person. No, thank you. Like
Right.
that is not what I'm here for.
I mean, a charity stream of playing like Zelda or something for 10 hours wouldn't be such a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, at about hour, I think whenever we used to do it, about hour 6 was whenever I started to tap out. I'd be like, yeah, yep, I'm hungry and sleepy, and this is
Yep.
enough.
Yeah.
well, Nathan, we definitely thank you for your time. And,
Yeah.
definitely encourage everybody to pick up the book on Cokesbury or Amazon. And you want to make sure we get the title correctly because I'm very bad about this. So remind me what the title is.
So it's God and the machine, very distinctly God and the machine, as in they
And
are like two separate things.
and if you can't notice it, if you're watching online, like right above his left shoulder up there, is the copy of the book. And I was like trying to read it. I was like, I can't like yeah. And so my ADHD is really bad today. So definitely thank you for your time. And hopefully people will pick up the book. And also one of the things that we ask that when you read the book, please leave comments on Amazon. And so it helps them get the next book. It's a good way for people to find the book as well. And so we encourage you for doing that. And so listeners, thank you for listening. For the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
Guys, and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.